The Reformed Gamers is brought to you 100% independent and ad-free thanks to our dear patrons over on patreon.com/thereformedgamers. To get yourself sweet perks such as early access to all of our episodes, special episodes of the podcast, and more, head over to patreon.com/thereformedgamers today and consider lending support to the show. Without further ado, let's hop into the show.
Hello and welcome, dear listeners, to a special bonus episode of the Reformed Gamers, a show all about theology, video games, going back to Raccoon City for the billionth time, and anything else that we can think of. I'm your host, Logan, and joining me is, I feel like, Micah, are you our third co-host at this point? You've been on the last 3 episodes, I feel like.
I think I am. I've been on it more lately than Adam has. So yeah, I'm feeling that
way. Well, there you go. You're a host by default. Adam, better get them numbers.
Step it up.
I'm kidding. Dear listeners, I feel like before we get into this episode, I know those of you listening to this are super excited to talk about Resident Evil 2 and hear about that, and we are too. But just wanted to let you know, last week I wasn't bailing on anybody. It's just life happened, things came up, and I couldn't make it to the recording. So last minute, my boy Adam and Mike over here hopped on the mics, took care of the newsy news, and knocked it out of the park on that one. I'm proud of you guys. You guys knocked it out of the park. I enjoyed that episode. It was good stuff. Shout out to David Skinner for editing that episode and producing that for us. He's going to be helping us out with that from here on out. But it hit me today. I was sitting there in the morning thinking, I'm like, man, if we don't do a Resident Evil 2 episode before our E3 predictions, a whole month or so is going to go by and people aren't going to care anymore because it's like, we made you wait too long. It's kind of like how Square Enix has made everybody wait so long for this Final Fantasy VII Remake, and people are starting to not care anymore because it's so long. I'm not going to do that to you. I'm not going to be Square Enix to you guys. I can't. It's going to keep me up at night if I do that. So I'm not going to do it. We're here to talk about Resident Evil 2 Remake. Going to knock it out of the park. I asked Adam if he wanted to join in on this, and his schedule is crazy this week and he's not able to record, but you know, like you said in the last episode, he wanted at least me and Micah on here to talk about it. We did get the Platinum Trophy for this game, so we've got a lot to talk about. Yeah. We'll get Adam's thoughts in here too next time we record and go from there. Might even just do another bonus episode. I don't know. We'll see what we do. A little bit of housekeeping, just real briefly, before we get into the show here. Just want to remind everybody about our YouTube channel. Got some new content going up on there. We just released episode 4 of Fury recently. And I think I'm going to try and get our first look of Cuphead out this week because I finally managed to capture some footage for it. Just go over to the YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you never miss an upload, and you will check out all the fun stuff we got going on there. Got a new article up on the website going up here on, we'll record it on the 20th. It's going to go up on the 21st. So again, reformedgamers.com is really your one-stop shop for almost everything except YouTube related stuff. I guess I'll work on that. But without further ado, and because this is a bonus episode, it's going to be a little different than how our normal episodes work. We're skipping the what have you been playing and what have you been reading. You guys don't care about what I've been playing. Even if you do, you can just ask me on Twitter and I'll let you know. But we're skipping that so we can get straight into the topic, okay? So we're going to get straight into the topic of Resident Evil 2. Now, if you've never listened to our episodes where we deep dive into games before, here's how they normally go. We go into the development history of the game, some development history highlights. We go into our spoiler-free review of the game. For the purposes of this episode, me and Micah are going to talk about our Platinum Trophy adventure to get that in this game here and all the pain the game caused us along the way. And then after that, we're going to do a spoiler section where we talk about the themes in the game. So if you have not played the game yet, you can listen to the show up to that point. If you don't care about spoilers, then you can listen to the whole thing. But if you care about spoilers, that's the point where you stop, and we'll give you spoiler warnings and stuff before we get into it. I don't want to hear anybody complaining on Twitter that we ruined Resident Evil 2 for you. The game is 20 years old. You've had time to play it. I don't want to hear it. So,
very true.
If you have not played it and you still listen to it and it gets spoiled and you freak out, I'm going to get on your YouTube account, make you subscribe to our account, and then I'm going to have you subscribe to PewDiePie's account, and then you're just going to be stuck. Okay? So I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. All right. So, Micah, I had you help me out leading up to last week's episode because we thought we were going to do Resident Evil 2. I had you help me out by looking up some of the development for this game. So, good
Yeah.
sir, lay it on us, man. What went on during the development of this sweet, sweet game?
Well, you remember we got to go all the way back several years, back to 2002. You remember the GameCube? Remember that
I
console?
do, man. That was my favorite console that we talked about.
Yeah,
One of
so
them,
the
anyway.
origins here go all the way back to the GameCube. So, of course, we had the original Resident Evil 1 remake, the original remake, the RE make, back
Yes.
in 2002 on the GameCube. So after that game came out, Capcom had considered remaking Resident Evil 2 back then, but series creator Shinji Mikami didn't really want to move development away from Resident Evil 4, which was going on at the time.
Mm,
So a lot of time went by, over a decade, and finally, just the fans kept asking for it, and finally, in August of 2015, Capcom announced that they were doing the remake, that it was in development, and we didn't really hear from it for a long time. A lot of people still forgot about it, but they were working on it, and we finally got to see it for the first time at E3 at 2018. I think it was Sony's press conference with the rat climbing up the shelves and stuff and getting falling over, all
yeah.
that stuff. So they revealed it there. So the game is directed by two people that are sort of longtime Capcom Resident Evil developers, but first-time directors. A couple of guys named Kazunori Kadoi and Yasuhiro Ampo. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But to meet modern expectations, the team attempted to make the remake more realistic. So, for example, Leon was no longer wearing those sort of large shoulder pads, which were added to distinguish his original low polygon model. They strove to make sort of a more modern, accessible game. So they focused on horror over action, hoping to sort of preserve that claustrophobic feel of the first one.
Hmm.
The game uses the RE engine, which is the same engine used for Resident Evil 7. So that allowed Capcom to really sort of modernize the gameplay. So following its E3 2018 showing, RE2 won the Best of Show award at the 2018 Game Critics Award. And the game went on to release worldwide for the PS4, Xbox One, and Windows on January 25th, 2019. To universal acclaim, with praise directed at its presentation, gameplay, and faithfulness to the original. As of February 2019, the game had shipped 4 million copies worldwide. So it's a definite
Wow.
success for Capcom. I think one of their biggest ever. I know Monster Hunter World is doing wonderful for them, but this is no slouch for Capcom for sure. So good sign for the future. But that's a little bit of the history of this game. But yeah, let's get into it. Let's get into the rest of it.
Yeah, man. It's funny that you say that this started back in the GameCube era, because I distinctly remember playing Resident Evil 2 on my GameCube. And the thing is, before this game, I had never finished it before. When I played on the GameCube, I played as a Leon, and I got all the way down into the sewers. But at this point in my life, I was deathly afraid of spiders. Kind of still am to a degree. But when I got down to the sewers, I remember seeing these giant spiders. One was on the wall, one was on the ceiling, and I lost it, man. I threw my GameCube controller, paused the game, took the disc out, and I was like, I'm not going to play this anymore. I'm done. I'm never going to play this again. And so it's funny because now I look back, like playing this game, and we'll get into this a little bit because they changed some of the things. I went back and looked up like what those spiders look like in the sewer, and I saw their little low polygon models, and I'm like, I was scared of these things when I was in high school. Really? Like, they're not that scary.
Yeah.
But man, the GameCube. I'm not going to go back down that trail. If you guys want to listen to me talk about the GameCube, go listen to episode 141. So let's get into this part, man. Let's talk a little bit about the game, specifically give a spoiler-free review of the game. What did you think of Resident Evil 2 Remake?
I thought that they took the best parts about the original and they modernized it in a perfect way. Ultimately, all around, I thought it was just a masterclass on how to do a remake. They took all the best parts about the original and took the bad parts and sort of discarded them. Of course, they updated the script. Back then, it was terrible voice acting and terrible writing, so they updated the script. They kept the story, they kept the plot very much intact, and is very faithful in that regard. But they updated the script, so all that sort of stuff is great. The graphics are absolutely excellent. The RE engine that they've sort of got their feet wet with Resident Evil 7, they really got a hold of it this generation and are really cranking out some good work, I think. So graphically, it is really up there. And then with the audio, they really did a great job with the 3D audio. I think there are some games that do similar things, but they're really pioneering some great stuff, I think, with the 3D audio, which added a lot to the just the effects of that claustrophobic feel I sort of mentioned up front. And we'll get into it a little bit later with a certain particular someone that comes after you a lot of the game, and just sort of hearing him walk around and stuff. It was just really excellent with the 3D audio. But yeah, overall, just they really delivered in all of the sort of big modern ways that you'd hope that they would modernize a game, while keeping the spirit of the original.
Yeah, man, I could not agree more. I remember before this game came out, I was playing through Resident Evil 0 and Resident Evil 1 and just thinking, man, these controls are garbage. I don't I don't like these controls.
It's hard to go back to.
It really is. And they're not necessarily the tank controls either. Like, they're the updated modern ones to a degree, but it's still just rough to play, the camera angles and all that. And so going from that, coming right off the heels of Resident Evil 1 and then going into the Resident Evil 2 remake, I was like, this is how a Resident Evil game should play. This is how a Resident Evil game should look. This is how it should sound. Man, you aren't kidding about the sound in the game. It creates some truly tense and terrifying moments in the game, especially just how, like, you can hear certain sounds like in the next room, and so you're slowly creeping in there, but you hear the nails or the claws of one of the lickers somewhere, and so you're slowly walking down the hallway, but you hear it like kind of roar or something, and then you hear other things in another. Oh, it's so good. It creates a very convincing atmosphere for the game. And apart from that, I mean, it looks incredible. It looks realistic to almost to a gross degree at parts. I'm still thinking of a particular hallway that you walk down, and there's this cop down there, and you know what scene I'm talking about if you played the game. So it's a very dark game that we're going to get into a little bit later for a few different reasons. But in all of that, it creates this game that just draws you in, and it captivates you, and not necessarily in a bad way. It's just, it gets you thinking about different things, or at least it did for me, just with the different things that Umbrella was doing and the effects of that. I'm getting ahead of myself. All that to say is that this game controls great, it sounds great, the music is really good. Now I got the deluxe edition when I got it, and so I had the original RE2 soundtrack that I could swap out, and so I played the game with that, and even just the original soundtrack just sounded amazing. Like, it still fit the game even when it was updated, and that blew me away. So it just, the whole game, it was a fun ride through and through. It is graphic in moments, but I don't think it's exploitative to the degree that Mortal Kombat is. I think it serves a purpose in showing you the horror of what men can do when they're in a relentless pursuit to create weapons of mass destruction and to have power. And so I don't think it's exploitative in that way where it's negative. I think it serves a positive purpose. But again, the game is rated M for mature, so you're going to play it, go into it fully expecting that. But you and I, Micah, we had so much fun with the game that we went and got the platinum trophy.
I had to do it
for this game. Yeah. So, man, you start off, you kick it off with, what was your journey to getting the platinum trophy? Like, first of all, what convinced you to get the platinum trophy?
Well, first and foremost, I saw the number of playthroughs that it required, and I do remember from the old game that you can do some speed runs because there are some unlockables for doing it in under, I think maybe back then it was beating it under 5 hours, I want to say, or something like that. And there were similar trophies going on here, so there was multiple runs and speed runs going on. So I'm like, okay, how long does it take to beat? So I just, up front these days, whenever I play a game, first and foremost like this, I'm not looking at trophies so much anymore. I'm just enjoying the game for what it is, and I get whatever trophies I earn. I'm not really going out of my way to try to, hunt for all the collectibles or anything like that. I just want to enjoy the game how I would normally play it, and I get what I get. So I want to see how long the game is. And the first playthrough takes me, I think, maybe 11 hours or 12 possibly, because I'm really scouring everywhere. And so I got kind of scared. I was like, oh, if this is good, if it's 12 hours every playthrough, this ain't going to happen. But then I did the B scenario, or the second run, I guess I should say, for the other character. And that was a lot shorter. I started memorizing things, memorizing patterns, puzzles, started carrying over, and each run got faster and faster and faster and faster. And I started playing my third round and my fourth round and my fifth round. And by the time I get there, I'm like, I'm beating the game in like maybe, I can't remember what my fastest was. I want to say it's like an hour 50 or something like that, somewhere in that neighborhood. I can't remember exactly. It's an hour something. But anyway, so you can really plow through them and knock out a lot of the quote unquote difficult ones, and even pair some of them together in a couple of runs. But once that train started going, I started seeing the momentum of that and seeing, okay, yeah, it's going to take 6 playthroughs to beat it, but this ain't bad at all, because that's sort of what the game is how it's meant to be played. So it was one of my favorite platinum trophies to pursue, mainly because it's one of my favorite games ever, just as far as I'm talking about the old PlayStation 1 release. It's one of my favorite games ever. So I had a blast going and getting the platinum for this game. But yeah, great trophy list, I think. A lot of fun ones on there, a lot of difficult ones. Nothing too, just anything that you want to like, jump out the window over or anything like that. So yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, man. I think for me, I don't really know when I decided. I think I finished Claire. No, I started with Claire. So I did Leon's B-side. So after I finished his, I was like, I have a good majority of the trophies. I'm just going to go get the platinum for this. Surely the hardcore mode won't be that bad since I'm unlocking all these different items. But then come to find out, hardcore mode is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be.
It's hardcore.
It's just, man. But the thing is, yeah, I will. And I think I said this before. I said it somewhere. It might have been in the group or on the show. This is probably one of the better trophy lists I've ever seen in a game, or I've seen in a game in a long time. There wasn't really anything too ridiculous. I don't recall. I think the only thing I hated the most was going after the hardcore story trophies, where you complete the game as Leon and Claire in hardcore mode, which I think you have to do it in under 2 hours or 2.5 hours or something like that. Depends on which story you do, or maybe that's how you unlock something. But it wasn't that bad. I actually, and I know you didn't do this glitch, but I did, and it drove me insane, and it wasn't worth it.
I know.
There's this glitch, and if you guys go to twitch.tv/thereformedgamers, I think I talk about it in the archive of Resident Evil 2 last time I streamed it. There's this glitch you can do in the library where you lead a zombie up to the first landing of the stairwell, and you move your character a certain way, so you're kind of standing over one of the steps. So when the zombie is crawling on the ground and grabs you, you move forward, and the game glitches and you start basically walking on air, and you can go to the corner of the library and fall through, because if you step there on the balcony part, you actually fall through it. But if you go to that same spot when you're walking on air, you fall through the map, so you can skip an entire section of the game, and then you don't have to mess with Mr. X throughout the entire thing, depending on who you're playing as. And then you can do that again in this. Do what?
It's completely cheap.
It is cheap, and trust me, it'll drive you nuts. It isn't worth it, so don't even try it, dear listeners. But you can also do it in the sewer, and I spent 4 hours trying to get this stupid glitch to work in the sewers. And my wife was about to just break my PlayStation because of how frustrated I was getting. And I finally got it to work, and it wasn't even worth it because it didn't save me any time. It added more time. But it, I managed to beat that stuff, and that was the only thing I didn't like. And then fighting the final boss or the final series of bosses, or however you want to label it, was on hardcore mode. It's no slouch. It'll put you through your paces. It'll really test your patience.
Mm-hmm.
But man, did it feel good getting the platinum trophy.
Yeah.
And I even liked. So, what are your thoughts? This is a game mode, and I guess this is kind of spoilery. I'm not entirely sure, but in case, I mean, we're going to go straight into the themes after this anyway. But so if you don't want the game spoiled, hit the pause button,
Get
go play
out.
the game, and then do all that. But again, if you complain to me on Twitter that we spoiled the game for you, again, it's been 20 years. You've had time. Also, you're going to be subscribed to PewDiePie. Get over it. Okay. So one of the other game modes that you unlock is the fourth survivor, where you play as Hunk and you're trying to get out of the almost said
The area, the whole
yeah,
area,
I almost
really.
said
You go through the
battle
whole game.
station. So yeah, you're basically you are running through pretty much every single area in the game, just about. And so I had a lot of fun with that. Like, I thought that was really thrilling. I can't remember what my fastest time was though. I want to say it was under 10, because you have to beat it in under 10 minutes, right?
Oh, I'm not sure what the timer is, but yeah, I didn't play it multiple times. I did it once, and once I did, I was like, all right, done. Got
So
the trophy.
did you beat it on your first try?
Oh, heck no, man.
Oh,
That thing
okay.
is hard. It is no, I had to like look up some strategies on that because I was like, okay, I thought I was getting toward the end. I didn't know where the end was. So I was like, I didn't know how to use my resources. Like, okay, should I go ahead and use
Yeah.
my flash grenades here or not? And so man, yeah, that was brutal. That was, well, I know there's some other ones that you can unlock with tofu and stuff that are more difficult and give you different like
Yeah.
loadouts essentially. I haven't gotten into any of those, but yeah, it's real tough. That's one of the harder things. It took me a good, I needed to memorize it basically. So maybe 4 or 5 times before I got through and did it well. Maybe on the sixth try or so, I got it. But yeah, I had to memorize it a little bit. That was hard.
Yeah, man, for sure. It took me several tries too, because it just, that point where it's like after you're leaving the police station and you're going through essentially where the B-side story starts. That one was the hardest part for me because there's just so many enemies. But it was a lot of fun. It's one of my favorite platinum trophies that I got. It's easily up there with the Persona 4 Gold and Platinum for me. I really enjoyed getting this one, which is rare because normally when you go to complete a game, you wind up hating the game, but that's not the case.
Yeah, it truly is one of the only games where I've gotten the platinum, and I'm like, I want more. I want more.
Yeah.
Like there's some there actually is some DLC trophies I can go back and get, but yeah, it's so good, definitely.
Yeah. And you have to go get it now, because every time you look at your trophy list, your trophy now for it just says 95%. It's like you got to get those other trophies.
I know. I'm going to do it one day.
I probably will too. It won't be anytime soon, but I probably will too.
Yeah,
now, this is one thing we didn't quite get into before. Maybe we touched on a little bit, but did you play the original? And you might have said that and I might have zoned out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Resident Evil 2 for the PlayStation 1 was the very first PlayStation game that I bought myself. I didn't own a game up to that point. I'd been playing demo discs and stuff, but I finally bought Resident Evil 2. And yeah, it was influential. I'd mentioned on the episode we did about consoles, a couple episodes with Jonathan, about how the PlayStation 1 was really influential for me personally. I got it when I was 14, played a lot of games. I was 15, 16 years old. So, the games I consumed on that system were really, influential for me. So Resident Evil 2 is like one of my favorite games ever. So there was a high bar here for it to meet. But the original was groundbreaking, in sort of the same ways that this game is. It was praised for its graphical fidelity. I know we sort of joke about them now, but those pre-rendered backgrounds back then were awesome.
Yeah.
The audio quality back then, I remember being great. Just all the sound effects for all the steps, for example, and different textures would change. That was really cool. The puzzles were unique, and then the A and B scenarios that had never really been done. That was new back then. So it was really a groundbreaking game. even back then. So yeah, definitely played and loved and have a lot of respect for the original and what they're doing back then. It was really, I think it propelled Resident Evil into like another level that I think Resident Evil 4 continued to propel it on. But yeah, that was a big one for Capcom back then.
Yeah, man. I personally, I played Resident Evil 2, like I said, on the GameCube, but I never finished it. But it was that season where Resident Evil was coming to the GameCube because of the Resident Evil 1 remake and then Resident Evil 0. And I tried to play Resident Evil 1, but it scared me too much and I couldn't figure out the puzzle, so I never finished it. But then when Resident Evil 0 came out, I played through that and finished it. I was like, man, this is really cool. I like Resident Evil now. I'm going to go play Resident Evil 2. You get to the part in the sewers and there's the spiders. I'm like, nope, I'm out. I'm done. So yeah, I never finished it, but I remember playing this and just being like, man, this is so cool. Like Resident Evil is just such a cool game series. I like what they're doing. I like the zombies and stuff, but I'm still a wimp. So finishing this one for the first time, multiple times, was a nice bit of, what's the word? Yeah, I guess a nice bit of redemption. Yes, thank you. A nice bit of redemption in my gaming career. Man, so good. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the themes of the game. Some of the things that we noticed while playing the game, maybe some of the things that just made us think while we were playing the game. So again, we've already said it earlier, but spoilers ahead. If you don't want the game spoiled, don't go any further. Pause the episode. If you don't care about spoilers, you do you. But if you don't want spoilers, you've had 20 years. Enjoy being subscribed to PewDiePie if you complain about it. Here we go. All right. So, man, so to set it up, it basically continues what happened in the first game. Raccoon City's pursuit of creating biological weapons, doing the T-virus and all this stuff is spread out. The virus has made its way outside of the mansion. It's made its way into Raccoon City, and now the city is falling apart. And this is a terrible first day for Leon on the police force. But he's going into Raccoon City to start his first day on the job as part of Raccoon PD. Claire's going into the city to find her brother Chris, who's gone missing. And they go into Raccoon City. They see people it's overrun by zombies. Something's going on. And they just find themselves in the midst of all this fallout of Umbrella's actions. And then it just keeps going from there. So, man, where do we want to start when it comes to the themes? Because there's a few different routes we can go, kind of like the B side or the regular side. We can go a few different ways here. But what's one thing that you saw in the game that just kind of made you think or that just stood out to you?
Well, I guess I'll speak generally first, and maybe we can hone in, because I think really, a lot of what you're seeing is just, it's the full depravity of man and the full sort of effect of, just selfishness. Ultimately, you talk about you got Umbrella first and foremost, a real greedy corporation, that's really undertakes devious acts to get money, and that's bioterrorism, because that's where they're going to make a lot of it. So there's a lot of just greed there for that corporation. The people that work for Umbrella, such as William Birkin, one of the main stars, and Annette, his wife as well, who are working on the G virus, are driven, and for these they have an idol of work, and they're just driven, and that's all they're really focused on. So you see a lot of just general, the effects of what, idols do, what greed can do, what, and again, William and Annette were sort of after similar things. And so you just see the fallout of that. Like you said, there's all these little, I'll say all these little, but there's pockets that you can see, such as you see Sherry Birkin's life and the effects that it has on her. You see the Kendo gun shop owner and what it's done to him. And you see, all these little journals you pick up in the effects that it has on a bunch of different people. But yeah, just that general, I know it's an extreme situation, but that just full depravity coming to fruition in a real kind of dramatic way.
Yeah. And you see this showcase in several different instances. I remember when you first meet Annette Birkin and she's so consumed with getting results and writing them down and logging all that stuff and then doing experiments that when I played through as Claire, I had Sherry Birkin with me. I was trying to protect her. And we had just survived an attack from Mr. X, who, by the way, Mr. X is a punk. I hated that dude. Like,
Oh man.
I liked him as a game mechanic that he's just always somewhere on the map and he comes after you. It made for some fun moments. But there were so many moments where he would just show up right around the corner. I'm like, how did you know I was here? Like, just leave me alone.
He's so awesome.
Uh, but oh man, and dude, when Sherry's dad just tears him apart at the elevator, I'm like, dude, yes.
Oh, we're jumping there already. Oh, geez.
I mean,
yes.
we're in spoiler territory now. I mean, like I said, we're just gonna go for it. But it's so cool.
Oh yeah. Sorry,
It's
go ahead.
so good. So good. I was like, yes, finally, you're done, Mr. X. You're done. But going back to sorry, got a little geeked out. Going back to Annette Birkin, you see her just so like she cares more about her lab results than the fact that her kid is so traumatized. And to be fair, Sherry Birkin handles all this surprisingly well. Like I thought she would be in shock, or she would have some form of PTSD or something, or she would just.
It's one of the most sad parts of it's one of the most sad like plot points of the whole story. It's just that and how Sherry is just completely abandoned by her parents. And, Sherry wants and needs her mother and is seeking her and, nearly pleading with her. And her mom's just, and I guess partially understandably so, just can't give her attention. She's completely trying to figure out G, aka William Birkin, and figure out how to contain him. She says it's going to cost millions of lives, which I guess that's a cause worthy to focus on. But it's just so heartbreaking to see how they treated her up to this point to even get here. Truly sad part of the story there.
Yeah, it really is, and it made me so mad at that character because I'm like, dude, I get that you're trying to stop your husband who took the G virus and now has become this terrible monster, but at the same time, like your daughter has been through so much that to just ignore her is baffling to me.
Well, she sort of doesn't, she kind of sort of does help her in the end and doesn't completely ignore it. It's almost like she's conflicted and her brain is so frazzled and fried that she can't think clearly. Like, I know I need to help Sherry, but I know that I also must do this stuff for my work. So it's almost as if she's been, like she's been crunching for, 100-hour work weeks period before all this broke out. And then this happened. And it's just like, she can't even really think clearly. She's trying her best just to even keep it straight and to, analyze things. And so having to think about Sherry is just another chore that her brain just can't muster in the moment. So it's like she's trying to sort of, but almost can't even, gather the right empathy and stuff to do it correctly. But yeah, she's a bit of an odd character as far as like, why is she doing it this way? But I think she's just so fried and frazzled. I don't know. She's an interesting one.
Yeah. So, and I just thought of this because, you do come to find out that Sherry is infected she has the G virus, or is it the T virus?
Sherry got infected with the G when she was at the orphanage with the Irons, the chief police.
That's right. Okay.
She was infected at that point in time. So yeah, she got infected, and then Annette helped cure her before the very end.
That's right. Do you think that maybe part of Annette's obsession with the lab results and stuff is in a way her loving her daughter because she's trying to find some fix for it? Because you find the cure later or at the end of the game.
I guess so, and that's one of the last things she says, I think, before she dies, is that because Claire asked her like, why did you do this, basically, and she was like, how can Sherry grow up in a world like this, where G has taken over. So, I can't have that. So she was focused on the bigger problem, which, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So I guess a focus on work can be a double-edged sword depending on how much time you put into it, because it just makes me think of how there are families out there where the dad or even the mom is working so much to where it comes at the cost of family time. Uh, and being a youth pastor, I see this firsthand a lot of times, and I hear from students, I wish that I had more time with whichever parent it is that is spending that much time. I think a lot of times we get in this mindset, and maybe I'm wrong on this. You're a parent, I'm not, so we'll see how this goes. But we might get in this mindset of like, we're trying to provide or protect our family, that really the best thing that they need is those 10 to 30 minutes of personal time, not 10 to 30 minutes of time that can be put on a paycheck or something like that. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a parent. Micah, maybe you can speak more to that. But
Yeah, well, I mean, clearly, I think in this particular case for the Birkins, I think some of the journals even allude to the fact that the whole reason that the Birkins had Sherry was that they could use her for experimentation, which it makes it even sadder because one journal alludes to the fact that the G performs better in kids. So that is sort of alluded to a little bit. So how much
okay.
the Birkins even loved her, I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
But that's another just sort of haunting aspect to all this. There's there's the whole orphanage that Chief Irons works at, and I think that is basically just a breeding ground for that to host kids to be experimented on. But yeah, so I don't know in this case if there's a whole lot of love for Sherry from her parents, but yeah, obviously they had the Birkins had work was their life, it was their idol.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And that probably wasn't something that they necessarily wanted. I'm sure Umbrella imposed a lot of that on there, because I mean, you see it throughout the game that they're willing to kill people to get what they want. And you mentioned that bit about the orphanage, and that must have just completely gone over my head, or I must have missed something, because you talking about the orphanage being a kind of like it was used to bring kids in so they could do tests on them. That went over my head, and it further highlights how evil Umbrella really is. And when you play through the other games, you kind of get a sense of that, but in this game, or at least in the remake, in my opinion, you really you see its ugly face so many
Mm-hmm.
times.
Yeah.
And you brought it up earlier. This is the one that hit it home for me, was the kendo shop, the kendo gun shop owner. You see this when you first come in there. You run into the kendo gun shop when you're playing as Leon, and you're going there with Ada, and you meet I believe his name is Robert Kendo.
Yep.
He's the gun shop owner, and he holds you up because he's like, he just doesn't want anybody messing with him. But you see his daughter come out from somewhere, and you can tell she's infected, and so you can tell that she's going to turn at some point. And the thing that hit me hard was she asked, "Is mommy sleeping?" And I'm like, "Oh, dude, man!"
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the moment where it hit me that the true evil of Umbrella isn't the fact that it's not necessarily their pursuit of bioweapons, it's what their actions have done to other people, because the result of their actions isn't just self-contained within the company, it's spilled out into this entire city and has torn apart families, and has put people like Robert Kendo in a terrible position where he probably had to kill his wife because she was a zombie and she was gonna hurt his daughter, and now his daughter is infected, and now he's gonna have to be put in the terrible position of making that decision of killing her, or just not going through it and be like, I can't do this. It's a horror, man. Umbrella's a horrible company, man. Truly, truly horrible. And
Yeah, it's just that irresponsibility with their pursuit. They had a lot
yeah,
of, obviously, I'm filling in some gaps here maybe a little bit, but they have a lot of technological and biological prowess and knowledge, and they're using it for all the wrong reasons, and obviously not. They don't care about anything else other than getting the output, and or the bottom line maybe, but yeah, the Robert Kendo thing was that, and Sherry, because I guess because it involves children, are two of the saddest, moments that highlight all this. And this game did a excellent job. They did it with Kendo's daughter, and they also did it with Marvin, the police officer you find and hang out with in the police station, where they have this great sort of half transition period where they're like, you can tell they're like they're really like
yeah,
got a lot of zombie qualities, but they still got a little bit of human in it. They're still talking a little bit. They have this great middle ground that they establish in this game, and it makes it even more heartbreaking because it's almost like a struggle, like the humans trying to come out but just can't. Um, Very heartbreaking. Just a real, it really motivates Leon. I think he says after that scene, he's like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to save this city. He's like
yeah,
that spurs him on, much like, our hatred of sin should be, a motivating, it motivates us to action. He hated
yeah.
what he just saw. Leon did. So, in the same way that motivated him, that should motivate us, our sort of, hatred for sin should motivate us to action.
Absolutely. Man, I remember just when I played through as Claire, they had a pretty her and Marvin had a pretty good rapport, and I like Marvin's character. And I remember after you go down the sewers, you kind of tell he's done, like he can't go on anymore.
Yeah.
But when you come back into the police hall, I remember hearing Claire say, "Oh no, Marvin," and you see him get up and he's a zombie, and I'm like,
Mhm.
I can't I don't. So I didn't do anything to Marvin after that. He was a zombie
You didn't
running
wanna
around trying
shoot
to
him.
kill me. Yeah, I couldn't do anything because I'm like, and that's the thing that's kind of made this a little more real. When we play zombie games, you don't really think about how in the scope of this game, those people were actual people to a degree, at least within the narrative. But that scene right there made that so sobering to me, where I'm like, man, that was like my character was interacting with him just a few minutes ago, and now
Mhm.
this happened.
Well,
And oh, sorry, go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. Oh, no, go ahead, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's just man, it's crazy how it's just one of those things that you don't really think about, but this game in a way makes you consider that, because you see it in zombie movies all the time. You see characters who are trying to protect their loved ones, even though they're a zombie, those
Exactly.
kind of things. But in this game, and I think it's just because it's a video game, it puts you in that character's shoes. So it makes it a little more visceral in that degree. But man, it's like I said, it goes back to Umbrella being just truly, truly evil. And I like how you brought up the idea that sin should propel us to action, or hatred for sin should propel us to action. Because really, when you think about it, and this is getting very metaphorical here, Umbrella, if you think about it, could be a metaphor for sin and how destructive it is, because it just corrupted anything and everything it touched, and it interacted with so many things that it was bringing down an entire city. And here you have Claire and Leon trying to stop it. And I don't know, to me, and I know this is not what the developers were intending, but to me, man, it gave me this good picture of what it's like to live in our world as Christians. Not that we have to go around and beat up zombies or anything, but we're facing this dire situation where people are, walking dead, to use that reference from the show Walking Dead. People, scripture talks about how before Christ we were spiritually dead, but we in Christ are made alive again. And so we are to go into the world, we're to go into this darkness, so to speak, and be a beacon of light that Christ allows us to be. And again, this is a very I'm stretching things out here, and probably outside the realm of possibilities, I guess, when it comes to interpreting this game as art. But that's the picture that it gave me, and not exactly like, you know, what Christians should do, but it gave me, that's the picture it gave me, um, playing that
Well, yeah,
game. And I
with
feel like,
anything in life, whether it's real life or a piece of fiction, you take it back to the Bible and see, how does this, how does the Bible
exactly.
interpret this what happened or this piece of fiction? So yeah, you can do that with anything. It's that's great, but yeah, I mean, one thing, this isn't really a theme so much, but one thing I wanted to talk about was sort of how, in my opinion, again, coming from the background of playing the original, a lot of the nostalgia baked in was via the locations. Like the locations, I felt like in this game were sort of the stars in a lot of ways, and there were
Hmm.
these very distinct. You have the police department, you have the sewers, you have the underground lab. All these very broken up and very distinct areas, and those were sort of, oh man, anytime you got like, okay, now we're going down to the sewers. I know that alligator's down there, kind of thing. Like you're just
Yeah.
waiting, like what is that part going to be like? You're just waiting for these set pieces, sort of these locations that they're going to be great. The lab's coming up. It's sleek and unlike the rest of the game aesthetically. Like, what is that going to look like? And they really nailed all that stuff in this game. Use of lighting and fog and kind of steam and that sort of stuff, to hide a lot of the enemies in 3D space was really good.
Yeah.
But I just going into, I should say, walking up outside at the beginning of the game and just seeing the police station, and then walking into the main hall, walking to the front doors of the police station, and just seeing that area. I was in just nostalgic heaven. I was just like looking around, soaking in every detail. Like, man, this is incredible that they did this. But it was, and another thing too they did with the location is they subverted expectations compared to the old game again. So, for example, you go to the west hallway, that first sort of hallway, and you go by the window, and usually there's a liquor walking by. Well, that wasn't in the remake. The liquor was upstairs in the I guess it was still the west hallway, but it was upstairs in a different hallway. That's where you first see the
Oh,
liquor for the first time. So
huh.
they sort of play with you a little bit in what you think's going to happen versus what actually happens. They take a room. They're like, oh, I thought this room was over here, and they move it over there, and like, okay, I see what they did there. It's still here, but yeah, they just redesigned it a little bit. So they did a lot of neat, you know, uh, subversion of expectations um, as far as taking what you know and twisting it just a little bit while still making it familiar. I like that a whole
Yeah.
lot.
That's cool. And I bet because I mean, I played this on the GameCube. I barely remembered this game. I remember the spiders in the sewers, and thankfully they weren't there in the remake.
It's
So,
so traumatic for you.
no, dude, when I was going down to the sewers, I was ready for it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to the sewers. It's gonna be giant spiders. I've got this. I've got a shotgun. I will be okay. No, I was playing as, no, you get a shotgun as Claire. Um, and
Man,
I,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, I was ready for it. I get down there. I'm like, oh, what are these stupid, like graveler reject Pokemon things. What, like, where's the spider? There's no spiders. I'm like, all right, well, that. Thanks for playing me, Capcom. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you for not putting those in here.
Man, what did you think of the liquors in this game?
Terrifying, completely terrifying. That first hallway that you mentioned earlier, that you have to like slowly walk past or go into the stars members' offices, dude. I
Yeah.
was tense the entire time, and I was like, I don't think I was really breathing when I was trying to walk by, because it was just, I was scared, man.
It's such a great mechanic, and I don't know if they did this in the old game, but in this version, and you don't know it right away until you get a journal note. But basically, you find out that they can't see you, so they can
Hmm.
hear you, and so basically, if you walk slowly, they're not going to notice you. You can just sort of sneak on by them potentially. But if you like start running around, they're on you in an instant. They're
Yeah,
terrifying.
yeah,
Maybe
man.
more terrifying than Mr. X.
Yeah, dude. What's the worst is when you have to, when Mr. X is chasing you, and then you go into the hallway where there's a liquor, and I'm like, well, do I walk
Yeah,
or
the
do I
combo.
run? I was like, what do I do?
It happens when you go to the west hallway again, and you're trying to get the little like handle to like release the bookshelf in the library or whatever.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
There's a licker in that west hallway, and he comes out. Usually, he's chasing after you, and yeah, it's like, what do I do here?
Yep.
It's so
Man,
scary.
it really is. But it's fun. I like stuff like that because it forces you to rethink your strategy, and it just keeps you on your toes. It's very well designed game. Very well designed game. I think if I were to think of a verse that just kind of makes you think as you play this game, and I forget where it is exactly, so listeners will have to correct me, but it's the verse that says, "What is it worth to gain the whole world yet lose your soul in the process?" You know,
Hmm.
through Umbrella's pursuit, they lost their soul in the process, and now look at what happened. You know, I think that's a
Yeah.
good cautionary tale for all of us to think about as we play through Resident Evil 2 remake. Um, but man, so usually we end these segments here with, of course, I mean, dear listeners, real quick. I mean, if we missed anything or if you saw something that you want to talk about, hit us up on all the usual spots: Twitter, Facebook, all those places. So man, we normally end these segments with this. Would we recommend this game to the dear listeners?
Yes, but with a caveat. This has an M label on it, and it is absolutely not for kids. So it's also, this game could violate your conscience potentially. So, buyer beware, know what you're getting into. There is some language, and there is obviously a lot of, violence and gore. So if that is not a problem, this is a wholehearted recommendation. Um, I think it's my game of the year so far. It absolutely crushes it in every aspect, from the graphics to the audio to the storytelling to just the nostalgic remake of everything. They're really pushing the limits of the hardware. It's so good. So this is, a triple A game in every respect of the title. Yeah, I would give this 10 out of 10. I love it.
Yeah, I'm the same thing. You know, I do recommend it with a caveat. You know, the game is rated M. It does earn that M rating. So just do your due diligence. Do some research before you pick it up. If you want to check out some of the streams of the game, those are on TRG's Twitch channel. You can check those out. I'm pretty sure they're age restricted. If not, I should double check that and age restrict those. It's an M-rated game. But yeah, it's especially if you grew up playing these games. I think Mike can speak to it more than I can because I didn't finish the game like a wuss. But if you played through the first one, definitely play through this. It's always cool to kind of revisit something we experienced when we were kids, like a game or a movie or something. But it's got a whole new coat of paint on it, and then it's got some new bells and whistles and things like that. I think the collectibles, even like, they're not part of the trophy. You don't have to get all the collectibles to get the platinum, but I think it's fun to go after them just to see the different character models, some of the concept art. Some of the concept art for the game is really stinking good.
Yeah, it is.
And then, of course, you got the music and all that stuff, and I mean, all the extras with the costumes and stuff. You can get the original PlayStation 1 models as a free download now.
Yes, I got them, and I was using them for a couple of playthroughs. It was so fun.
They're
And
so good.
what was hilarious was I forgot that I had left them on at one point. So I think I had swapped back Leon, but for whatever reason, Claire was still like an old polygon. So like I was just playing through a game, and then she came up in a cutscene all polygonal. I was like, oh, so it was hilarious.
Oh, that's so good. That's always so good. Oh man, so good. Well, I think it's fair to say that our reco for this episode would be Resident Evil 2 with some caveats. But yeah, definitely check out the game. Micah, man, thanks for hopping on the mic and
Anytime.
joining me to talk about this game, dude.
Yeah, of course. I loved it.
Yeah, man. Good stuff. Well, dear listeners, hopefully you have enjoyed this bonus episode. Those of you that made it through all the way to the end. We will return in episode 143 with E3 predictions. We'll see how that one goes. But dear listeners, as always, if you would like to contact us, you can follow us on Twitter at TRG Podcast. You can join the Facebook group, The Reformed Gamers. If you would like to like us on Facebook, you can like our Facebook page. You can follow us on Instagram at The Reformed Gamers. You can also, if you like what we do here at the show, you can always consider supporting us on Patreon, patreon.com/The Reformed Gamers. Support as low as $1 a month goes a long way in helping us keep the controllers charged, fridges stocked with Mountain Dew, and keeping our tab going at Taco Bell. for those late night gaming sessions and getting those platinum trophies. Cool thing about supporting us on Patreon is you get early access to episodes, early access to all of our YouTube content, early access, or not early access, but access to our behind the scenes show, Patreon, Discord, things like that. You get a lot of stuff in there. Just go check it out, patreon.com/thereformedgamers. And then of course, follow us on YouTube, youtube.com/thereformedgamers for insightful video content, especially with the Fury series, and links to our shows and things of that nature. Without further ado, dear listeners, until next time, GG and amen.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Reformed Gamers. The following people are supporting us on Patreon at the producer level or higher, and we'd like to shout them out right here, right now. Those people are Alex Castellanos, David Matthews, David Skinner, Eric Bryant, Gareth Evans, Luke Strain, the Jet Islander Podcast, and Wesley Ray. Thank you for your support, keeping the controllers charged, and encouraging my addictive habit of getting platinum trophies. GG and amen.